coverage of severe weather today. A couple of things I want to show you. First is this storm in Dallas County. We watched that storm as it was fairly intense. Let me move over here. Fairly intense earlier today as it moved through, I would say Bosque County, parts of Hill County, then moved into Hill and Johnson County, really kind of weakened, and then now that has picked up again. And then this storm to the south of Mansfield in the Venus area, the National Weather Service has been watching that storm. They noted that there was some possible rotation with that. I'm not seeing that immediately at the moment here, but we will have to watch that little storm. As we've talked about, we have a tornado watch until 6 p.m. and that could very well cause some rotation to happen. We've been talking about the shearing winds, right? The winds at different levels of the atmosphere going different directions. That is going to sometimes lead to that rotation. This storm in Dallas County, one of the things that we saw was the Midlothian area got some fairly strong winds out of that cell. And you can see that little tail here. We haven't seen any rotation on that Dallas storm yet. We can go back to the velocity. And gusty winds with that storm for sure, but not seeing any rotation there out of that storm either. So that's going to be more of a hail and wind threat with that severe warned storm at this point. And what's also interesting here is I've been hearing some confirmation that what we're seeing, and you can kind of see this here moving eastward, and we've been looking at this, what we've been calling an outflow boundary. Apparently this is the front, and that is part of the reason why we have seen the activity on the other side of that weaken. But what you notice here is this broken line. See this starting to get organized here? That is our broken line, and we talked about a later event where we would see a line come together. It looks like this is happening a little earlier than expected. So I think what we're going to end up seeing here, I think the front may be getting here a little early. Things are happening a little earlier. And so we will probably see this broken line start to come together and then eventually move eastward across our area. So those who have not seen storms yet, this will probably be your chance to see those. But as the front moves eastward, everything from Cleburne to Fort Worth, westward, things are really starting to calm down. I mean, you can see that behind this line of storms, this line of activity, there's not much intense out here. But the Dallas storm, this one here, right here in Johnson and Ellis counties, heading up into Tarrant and Dallas counties, this storm near Venus, this one farther south, you can see that those are a little more intense here. Those are ahead of the front, and it won't be long before the front catches up with these. These start to congeal, and then that pushes all of this activity eastward. Now, this could be severe as it does that because it's going to be pushing this line directly into untapped atmosphere, untapped instability, those kinds of things. And so that will be part of what has to be monitored here as this moves eastward, but we will go from a isolated storm severe weather event to a solid line that will move eastward. At that point, it will be easier to say, hey, it's going to be here at this time, because it will be one line moving through, not waiting for a bunch of stuff to pop up. Now, we also can still see more development along the front, or really ahead of the front here. You can see this little storm between Waxahachie and Bardwell there, this little cell, that little green just blip there, one near Itasca. So it's possible that we could see more development ahead of that front, and those could become strong to severe as well. So we're kind of at a transition point where our severe weather threat is kind of evolving here. Now, west of Midlothian, I want to take another look at this. This is the storm that the National Weather Service was kind of monitoring for possibly some rotation. I'm not seeing anything that has me immediately concerned here. We do have this little bit of a tail on the reflectivity, maybe some stronger winds west of Midlothian, but I'm not seeing anything that has me too concerned about a tornado situation right now. But we'll continue to watch that. There is video floating around on social media of a reported funnel cloud west of Covington around 2:06 p.m. The thing is, I look back at radar, I'm just not seeing anything that substantiates a wall cloud, or a funnel cloud of that size and intensity. I mean, it was pretty close to the ground. It was a fairly well-organized funnel cloud. I just didn't see very much substantiating that. So unclear exactly what was going on there. I mean, here, like I said, in this atmosphere, you can have these quick little spin-ups, so that must be the situation. Must have been a very, very brief, the video itself was just a few seconds long, so it must have been a very brief spin-up between frames there that maybe by the time it got organized, it lost that push and kind of went away. This storm north of Whitney looks like that could be intensifying here, so we could be looking at a hail issue, a hail concern there. And this storm near Midlothian, again, that's the one we've been watching where the National Weather Service was monitoring some weak rotation, nothing too intense there. And then that storm north in Dallas County, that is the only severe warned storm in North Texas at the moment. That continues on through the downtown area. They're not a threat to our immediate area here, not in our vicinity. So we'll put on the velocity here. I'm not seeing anything too concerning. You can see there you can see the front here, and you can see very clearly a wind shift. So we were looking at that. It looked like outflow, but it looks like that's the cold front. So that's bringing the cooler air in. That will stabilize things behind it. So if you're behind this line from Rio Vista to Cleburne up to Mansfield now, everything east of there, you still have a severe weather threat. Everything west of there, you're done with the severe weather threat. You may not be done with the rain. Could still see some showers and possibly a few thunderstorms. We could have rain all the way into early tomorrow morning, but the severe weather threat ends when that moves eastward. So let's go back to the reflectivity here. And I want to check out the possible hail threat. Yeah, so I'm surprised this isn't warned yet. We may see a warning here very soon for parts of Hill County going up into Johnson, possibly Ellis County here, because this one right there on the river here, fairly decent hail threat out of this storm, and that looks like that has intensified fairly quickly here. So they may be drawing that polygon here to issue that severe thunderstorm warning, but I expect that to be warned here fairly soon. That is really right ahead of this front, and we talked about that a moment ago. We were talking about that outflow. Turns out the outflow was the actual front, and I was cautious to confirm that because it looked like the front was farther west. Well, it looks like it's got a jump now, and it's already moving through our area, which again, like I said, is you see this kind of broken line here starting to get organized, and beyond that, behind it, things are much more docile. There's still rain out there. There's still maybe some thunder, but not near as intense a situation. A lot of questions about Ennis coming up here, and I'm not sure when this is going to hit Ennis. The thing is, once the front catches up to this, that's when it'll start pushing it eastward, but we haven't seen that yet. This activity is still kind of getting organized. We'll probably see a solid line here develop in the next hour or so, and then that will move eastward. I would say in Ennis, you're probably at least, maybe an hour or two away. I know that possibly puts that in your area closer to dismissal time, but we will have to kind of wait and see how this gets organized before that moves eastward to figure out what kind of expectations to assign to that. We'll get an update on the radar here soon, but like I said, you look east here, and near Waxahachie and then over from Kearns up towards just north of Gun Barrel City, that's where you can kind of see these little pop-ups here. And of course, farther east, some heavier activity, but we will start seeing the possibility of more development ahead of that front now that it's making its way. And so that could change the dynamic here a little bit. Okay, just seeing some more emails and things coming through. Just trying to make sure I'm not missing any important information going on with that. Let me make sure to pull up another screen here. Good. So, yeah, this is what we're looking at here. This storm west of Midlothian, as I mentioned, the National Weather Service was looking at the possibility of some rotation with that storm. The reason that people are kind of jumpy with this is because we are in an atmosphere where any storm that starts to rotate, it won't take much before that could possibly produce a tornado. Luckily, the higher tornado threat is north of us, so we're not looking at the kind of imminent threat at this point. But west of Midlothian, they were watching that storm. I checked a few minutes ago, I'm not seeing anything that has me immediately concerned about rotation with that storm, but we will have to watch it because it's ahead of the front. The cold front has caught up to this now, or at least is getting there, and we'll start pushing this stuff eastward, and that could be a renewed threat for tornadoes. We've seen it before where this line starts coming together, but it has just enough push and just enough interaction with instability. When you start to get that transition period, there's a window there where sometimes that's where you see just kind of a brief increase in that tornado threat. I believe it was, let's see, what was that? Was it last year? Matt, you'll have to remind me. There was a tornado warning we saw in the Midlothian area last year, 2 years ago, somewhere in there, where we were talking about how low the tornado threat was, and turned out we got a warning. Well, it was in that small window of time where the front had caught up to those individual cells. They were coming together as one line, so that was going to lessen that tornado threat, but it was just in the right timing where we had that circulate. I don't think we got a tornado out of that actually on the ground, but that will be part of what we have to watch. We've had an update in the radar here. So really, the two most intense storms are the one north of Whitney, so this is northern Hill County, no warning on that storm yet, and then north of Midlothian. That's the one where the National Weather Service was kind of keeping that in the corner of their eye. We'll look at the velocity view here, and I don't see anything. There's a little noise there, so it's hard to see, but just from what I can see, I'm not seeing any kind of concern with any tornadic activity with that, nor do I see that with the Hillsborough storm here, but plenty of lightning west of Hillsborough there. So a fairly intense storm. We'll look at the hail threat here. So still a hail threat south of Blum. So it looks like you could be looking at hail, maybe half an inch to an inch, somewhere in that range, maybe 3/4 of an inch or so for what I'm seeing. And let's see. Not seeing a whole lot in the chat discussion here, not a lot of reports or anything. But again, I'll bring your attention to the fact that we have kind of this line starting to form, kind of a broken line. But as that front continues to move eastward, we'll see that come together. You can see the front here. There it is. You can see that thin line, and it's caught up here. So we will start to see this activity start to come together in a more organized line and then charge eastward. That will increase the wind threat. That could be when we start to see straight line winds come together as our higher concern as that comes together and move eastward. So that's where we're watching right now. That is what we're keeping an eye on. This storm moving into northeastern Dallas County here up towards Collin and Rockwall counties. Pretty decent little notch there. So they will have to watch that storm up there for those signs of possible rotation. Not seeing anything like that in our area here for the most part right now. The strongest storm we have is north of Whitney here in Hill County. And then one of those north of Midlothian, but not really seeing much out of that. So we will continue to monitor all of this. And north of Itasca there, really in different parts of our area, we'll have to check this just to see. But I'm not seeing signs of rotation here at the moment that have me too terribly concerned. Now, if we have storms that develop along this line, sometimes right there. So here we have an increasing wind speed west of Venus. So let's see, let's compare that to the reflectivity here. That's not associated with a storm, so that must just be the front. But winds picking up here west of Venus, so it looks like that's where the cold front's coming in. And if we have any storms that pop up here along this line and start to move eastward into all of this inflow, all of this moist, muggy, gross air, that's where we could be looking at another tornado threat. Sometimes when you have the straight line winds coming in, it'll mix in with some of that that storm food or that fuel that I've been talking about, that humid air, and that can cause it to rotate. So there are still things to look at. I don't want you to think that because the cold front is here that suddenly there's no tornado threat, or because we're going to get a solid line that ends it as well. We're still under a tornado watch until 6 p.m. Now, I will say once this front moves eastward, moves east of Johnson County, that will end the severe weather threat there and probably will end the tornado watch there too. I'm sure the Storm Prediction Center is working through all of that right now, but as this continues to move eastward, that is where we will be monitoring for really the kind of the second round or the second potential for severe weather. That will be more widespread across most of really the eastern half of our area. Ellis, Johnson counties, not much has happened there, especially east of I-35. So these areas, you're untapped. You've got plenty of unstable air that hasn't been touched yet for that to continue. Now, yep, so we just had an update on that tornado watch. Cancels Cook, Denton, Erath, Hood, Parker, Somerville, Tarrant, and Wise counties. So continues Ellis and Johnson counties continue in the tornado watch. So not canceling Johnson County yet. We will have to watch and wait and see when that front moves eastward for Johnson County to be totally canceled from that tornado watch. So that continues there. That continues until 6 o'clock. Now, I will tell you that probably by, I would say, 5 o'clock or so, 4 or 5 o'clock, 4:35 maybe, we will see that severe weather threat in Johnson County end. The other thing that we saw with some of this is that the models kind of projected that this stuff was that we were going to have this line form and then it was going to stall and then move eastward. If that happens, then we could be looking at a flood issue here, but I'm not really seeing that at this point. We will continue to monitor that, but as soon as all of this comes together, and I see I'm already getting questions about Ennis again, so once all of this comes together and then starts to move eastward, that is when we will have a better idea of that timeline for the rest of our area to get these storms. Right now, hard to say. Javon, I know you're asking for a timeline in Waxahachie and Ennis. It's hard to get a timeline at the moment. We're kind of in a transition period here with that threat of severe weather, watching to see what happens with this over the next several minutes to see if and when this line becomes more organized and starts moving eastward. For now, still looking at a broken line, fairly disorganized at this point as the front kind of moves in and establishes itself. I'm still not seeing anything that has me terribly concerned about rotation or tornadic activity at this point. Just not seeing that indicated. Someone is asking, I think you've asked a few times at this point, if Arlington is behind the line. And Arlington does appear to be behind the front here. Yes, so I believe Arlington is behind the line. You still have some showers and thunderstorms there, but it looks like your severe weather threat, because you're kind of behind this broken line here, I think the severe weather threat is deteriorating for the Arlington area, so I think you're good to go. Mirari, you thought tornado season was over. Here's the thing, our second severe weather season is fall. We normally would have gotten more storms in October, but the La Nina pattern we've been in kind of dragged on that drought. And so now we're starting to kind of get this seasonal shift. And so I believe that November, possibly December, will be more of our severe weather period here, our second severe weather season. So that is kind of what we have to put up with here in North Texas. So I will continue to monitor this. I want to look at velocity one more time, because I feel like right here near Grandview here, between Grandview and Rio Vista, there's a storm there right where these winds are coming together. So I think that we may need to watch that to see if we get any kind of concerning rotation with that. We do, well, here, let me get back to the reflectivity here. We do have a storm there, and it is trying to form that little bit of a notch there, but not anything too terribly concerning at this moment. Nicole spotted tornado outside of Covington. There was a funnel cloud reported. I've posted that on our X account. That's where I saw it. I'm still kind of skeptical of that, though, because there was no indication of that on radar. Went back and looked at that. That was about 2:06 p.m. There was a very small cell there, but no indication of rotation, so it must have been a very, very quick, very brief spin up, or possibly there's something fishy about the reporting there. But for right now, I'm not really sure that, anything, it at least doesn't look like it reached the ground. It doesn't look like it touched down, so technically wouldn't be a tornado. But if it was, then that's a pretty impressive funnel cloud that nearly reached the ground for a storm that had no rotation. So a little bit of a question there, but what matters there is we don't have any reports of damage, no reports of a tornado on the ground there at least. So at least the Covington situation, a little bit of a question there. But it doesn't look like it's going to be too big a concern. So as we watch this line come through, still a broken line here, still a little disorganized, but as we get as we kind of broaden this out, again, you can kind of see this coming together as, and Jared, it didn't look like Scud. I mean, this was a pretty distinct funnel. If anything at all, I question the location a little bit, but again, I wasn't there. I can't say they're wrong. But you can see this line here, fairly intense storm, this severe warned storm in Dallas County, fairly intense storm in Northern Hill County, may be warned soon. Between it, you can see this line starting to come through, and you can see where the cold front caught up with all of this. And so as that continues to move eastward, we will see this all come together and get organized, and that is when we will start to see this move more due east, and that's when we'll have kind of our secondary severe weather threat. Let's take a look at this storm in Hill County. I think that might be intensifying at this point. I'm hearing that there's pea-sized hail in the Covington area. That's what we're watching. So southwest of Covington here. That's where we're looking at the hail, report of pea-sized hail in that area, so fairly small. Looks like the hail threat may be lessening a little bit in that particular area. And then if we look at the velocity, I'm not seeing a whole lot of wind with that storm here, but more wind north of Venus. And again, I didn't see a storm attached to that, so that could just be gusty winds along the front there. So we will be watching this. We will be watching all of this activity. We're getting kind of into what I've been calling kind of our secondary severe weather threat here. If you are west, let me turn the reflectivity back. I love when, I know people love to get kind of the all clear, if you will. Looks like we're getting right to about 3 o'clock here, but if you are west of this line, of this kind of front line of storms, then you are done for the day, at least with the severe weather threat, because at this point, the strongest storms will form along that front and push eastward. And so you won't have to really deal with much if you're west of there. It's still some showers and thunderstorms, so there will be some rain there, but really not much in terms of severe weather. Now, if you're east of that line or along it, so that's going to be most of Hill County, Ellis County, Navarro County, you may still see some of this activity. So somebody asked about Midlothian. Well, you're kind of right there. So we'll see what happens as this continues to organize. It's getting organized really right next to Midlothian. So I imagine Midlothian may get another push of strong storms over the next hour or so once this really starts moving eastward. This particular storm here will probably move into the Midlothian area here in the next half hour or so. Asking about Whitney, if Whitney is done, I'm not sure really. It kind of depends on how quickly the front crosses Whitney. Looks like there's a storm in Bosque County that could make it that direction, so I'll continue to monitor that. Maypearl ISD asking about Maypearl. Nothing in Maypearl at the moment, so I would say, though, over the next half hour or so, looks like you could have a strong storm moving into the Maypearl area after it crosses over Itasca, so this storm will need to be monitored for parts of western Ellis County. Asking about Ferris. Nothing in Ferris right now. We'll have to wait a little bit to see what will happen there. Peterson, Megan Peterson, I guess, asking for Midlothian at 4 o'clock, and it's about 3 o'clock now. It's a little hard to say. An hour from this point, Midlothian may be cleared from all of this, but that kind of depends on this storm. As I've been saying, we're kind of in a period of transition here a little bit from the individual storms that we've been watching to more of the front-driven storms. And so as the front continues to kind of establish itself and organize this line, once it starts moving due east, we'll have a better idea kind of what to expect. But I would say over the next couple of hours, if you are close to this line or east of it, continue to watch what these storms are doing, because we could very well see more of an organized severe weather threat along and east of that area. So not the answer you probably wanted to hear, but just kind of a little more wait and see involved. Gusty winds probably headed into Midlothian now with this storm. Not a lot of winds here, and then south, I would say southeast of Itasca, we are looking at a little bit of really along this storm here. We'll have to watch this storm and see what that does. That's a fairly decently intense storm. Now, as that moves eastward, northeastward for now, we will watch and see what that does as the front catches up to it. I want to put this all into motion here. And looks like, let's see, we should get, okay, so this is the most recent radar update here, just a minute or two old. So this going in northern Hill County, eastern Johnson County, will be moving into parts of western Ellis County here in the next several minutes. So expect that to continue moving eastward. Moving into Itasca now, going to be moving into Grandview there, eventually towards Maypearl, Venus, Midlothian, that area. So this will continue to make its way, and then to the south of all of this, to the southwest of it, fairly intense storm in southern parts of Bosque County. This is kind of where we've been watching for our next storm here, because they move northeast into Hill County and then to Johnson County. They've all kind of been following this track. The other thing I want to mention too is that increases our flood risk, because if you've gotten storm after storm after storm, that could be downpour after downpour. So that is definitely something to keep in mind and watch over the next over the next few hours, I would say. Once this starts to move eastward, that will start to kind of lessen your threat of flooding. But we talked about this earlier, how the models kind of had all of this stalling out for a little bit and then pushing eastward. So we're kind of in that in-between period here where we could see this broken line stall out, could be some flooding issues going on, and then eventually all of this will push eastward and the flood threat will reduce a little bit because it'll be moving more quickly. Questions about Waxahachie here. Nothing immediately moving towards Waxahachie. Again, like I've been saying, it depends on when all of this begins to move eastward. All depends on that. A lot of questions kind of in the air right now because we're in that period of transition between these individual storms and the fact that we're now getting a more organized line. And you can see it here too. If you look here from Hamilton on towards Cleburne, you can kind of see that line as it's slowly but surely moving that way. So Larry Tyner, eastward, looks like it just keeps going north. Ennis hasn't gotten any of it. Like I keep saying, you have to listen to the whole context here. The front is moving eastward. Eventually, the front will take over and push all of this activity eastward. We're seeing a broken line here. I think we'll see a more organized line over the next hour or so, and that will push all of this eastward. At least that's what it looks like at this point, because the front will continue to move eastward, and it will eventually push all of this eastward. So Ryan Lawhead Photography saying that aerial flood advisory just sent out. So that would kind of work with what we've been seeing here, is the fact that we are dealing with a potential flooding problem because of these storms that, as Larry pointed out, have been moving northeastward kind of over the same areas, but that should reduce a little bit in the next couple of hours as this front pushes all of this eastward and you don't have storms training over the same areas quite as consistently. So a lot of wait and see here. We are still under that tornado watch until 6 p.m. Both Johnson and Ellis counties are included in that. I would argue, though, that most of Johnson County is not probably under the threat of tornadoes at this point, but I would say Ellis County definitely still under the gun for severe weather for this evening, especially as this front starts to push all of this to the east, eventually into Navarro County as well. Ellis and Navarro County is largely untouched by this activity. Midlothian has had some, but for the most part untouched, and as this all moves eastward, there's untapped storm fuel there for these storms to use and continue to intensify. So we will watch that as that goes. This storm here in parts of Johnson County, I want to bring the attention there. This is really the most intense storm we have right now. I'm going to be watching south of Covington, so southwest of Itasca, right in this area. We have a little bit of a tail on that storm. This is the southern edge storm, part of that storm, so that's where I'm going to be watching for the potential of rotation. Sometimes it takes that end of the line storm, the very end of the line there. That's where you have the inflow that can kind of do a little more, because the rest of the line, it struggles to get organized sometimes with that rotation. But that would be the area. If I'm watching for a rotation, that's where I'm going to be watching. And we do see a little bit of converging winds here. So I will be monitoring this for the potential for rotation over the next several minutes here. Not anything extremely intense right now, not really anything that I'm sounding alarm bells at this point. The National Weather Service is probably looking at this as well, just watching to see what it does as that moves on to the northeast. Let's see. Have we heard we may get hit around 4:30 in Waxahachie? I mean, that's an assumption. It's hard to say until we have an organized line that starts to move eastward. So, again, hard to say exactly what's headed to Waxahachie. We kind of have to wait and see what this does. Is it going to storm more after 4 o'clock in Midlothian? I would say after 4 o'clock is less. Well, let me qualify that. Behind this cold front, which you can see pretty well distinctly showing up here, behind that front is the possibility of more showers and thunderstorms. So your severe weather threat may end, but we may still have shower and thunderstorm activity to pay attention to at that point, but not severe weather so much. If you're behind that line, severe weather becomes less likely. Let's see here. Ashley Cook, will it move eastward for sure? I'm pretty certain. Because again, we have a whole cold front there, so that cold front is going to eventually push this stuff eastward. Now, this particular storm, I don't know if or when that's going to start moving due east. It may be in Dallas County before that happens. But eventually we will see more eastward motion as the cold front starts carrying this stuff with it. So time will tell exactly when that's going to happen, but I will be watching that. But this storm here, you can see this little tail. I'm going to be watching that for rotation here. And so we have an update there right near Osceola is where I'm watching. So you can kind of see you had this red here that's away from the radar, and then the green is towards the radar. So the fact that we're seeing kind of this, if there's any rotation going on, it's probably fairly broad, just east of Itasca. Now, just really east and southeast of Itasca, southwest, excuse me. So I'm going to continue to monitor this. Again, at the moment, I'm not sounding any alarm bells here. There's no tornado warning or anything like that, but that looks like it could try to materialize into something here over the next several minutes. And of course, like I said, we do have kind of this curvature here, and this is one of those days where we have to watch those fairly closely because, as I mentioned, this is kind of the end of the line. This storm is kind of by itself here. So you can see this is kind of the end of this broken line, at least for a while here. So this has a lot of inflow that it can work with, and this particular area is, especially as it continues to move northeastward, if it moves into Ellis County, and this front could very well start to move that more easterly. If that continues to move eastward, that will be largely untapped area, and that's why Ellis County is still included in that tornado watch, because there's still storm fuel to be used out there. So we will watch this to see what this does, see if that will result in a area of rotation over the next several minutes here. And Sherry posting a link there in the Facebook post. Matt, if you want to check that and see what that says. Not sure what she's referring to there. I don't want to click that and flummox the live stream here. But this is the storm that we're watching. Now, I will say, moving into the Venus-Alvarado area right now, a fairly intense storm. I haven't seen rotation with that necessarily, but we are looking at a fairly intense storm. Let's check and see what the hail situation may look like there. Not seeing hail there. Now, seeing hail increasing west of Itasca. So this particular storm, what I'm noticing here is I feel like we're seeing more supercell structure here. So west of Itasca in the core there, looking at a hail threat possibly, and then more kind of southeast of Itasca, that's where we could be looking at a little bit of rotation trying to organize there. So there's that update. Let's jump to the velocity here. One north of Midlothian, starting to see a little bit of a notch there, but I don't see anything that has me too concerned there. Winds moving into Midlothian now. That is the cold front. So that's the front kind of turning the winds around. And then near Itasca, I'm going to continue to monitor the possibility of some rotation trying to take root here. Again, I don't see anything that has me immediately concerned in that particular area. This storm does appear to have, and Skeeter, we'll talk about the potential tornado in Covington in a moment, but it looks like we could be looking at a hail threat here, and then near Osceola, maybe to the east of there, possibility of some rotation trying to take root there, but hasn't gotten organized at this point. Now there have been social media posts about the possibility of a tornado in Covington. Here's the thing. There's no confirmation that reached the ground, so at this point it is a reported funnel cloud. And then the other thing too that I'll say is that I looked at radar and I just didn't see anything that immediately had me concerned about a tornado there. It just did not look very intense, but the funnel cloud looks fairly organized. So it's hard to say exactly what happened there in Covington. I'm a little skeptical at this point, but I'm sure we'll get more information as we go forward over the next several hours of maybe what occurred there. Maybe we'll get a better look at historical radar information too, but not really any kind of confirmation there, at least no confirmation of a tornado for sure. No reports of damage or anything like that at this point. And normally by now we would have heard something. Fairly intense storm here. This is not looking. So folks, I know that there's video of the funnel cloud in Covington. I don't deny that there is video out there. But yeah, I just, it's one of those, it must have flown under the radar, no pun intended, but radar just did not show anything. So yes, Skeeter, I do see that you posted the link there. So it's a tough call. Kind of an interesting situation there. Just one of those where must have happened in between frames or something like that. Radar updates every 4 to 5 minutes. So, but will be interesting to kind of look back on that as we go. But again, no reports of damage or anything. So I don't think that we had an actual tornado on the ground there. This is really kind of the last storm in the line here, and fairly intense, especially north of Itasca. We've been watching that tail end for the possibility of rotation. Haven't seen anything too concerning at this point. It's not a warned storm, but we are, in the bigger picture, watching the fact that we have a broken line that is slowly but surely getting more organized here. This storm north of Midlothian, they were watching that before for the possibility of some rotation. Didn't seem to pan out to anything. New storm headed towards Hill County right now. Probably some hail in that storm, small hail I would say. But easily the most intense storm going on right now is right here near Itasca. You can see that there's lightning pretty far away from the storm itself. And so that's a fairly intense storm right now, if not for anything else. But I mean, there's plenty of lightning and thunder. It's making a lot of noise out there. I want to take a quick look again north of Midlothian. Let's check and see what the winds are doing out there, because this is a storm that is along the front. So if you're going to see any kind of rotation, it wouldn't be too terribly far-fetched to see it in that storm. But here in the Itasca area, I'm just not seeing anything really that well organized at this point. Not too terribly concerned with that at this moment. And we've kind of been seeing that. We've been seeing some of this activity that it'll intensify, it'll pick up steam, and then it'll weaken, kind of go up and down and back and forth, but not a whole lot of, not really a whole lot of anything really to mention. Pete, Robert Moore says Pete Delkus just hasn't mentioned anything about Covington on News 8. If it makes you feel better, I think it's just, I mean, in order for Pete Delkus to mention something about Covington, he's actually got to look down here. So I'm not really that concerned with what Pete Delkus thinks, because again, he has to actually look down here to see what's going on. But the Itasca storm, easily the most intense here. A lot of lightning with that one. You can see how far away those lightning strikes are going north of Hillsborough here. So that tells you a lot about the intensity of this storm. It also is a big reminder here of how far out lightning can strike outside of these storms. So you have to pay attention to that, and you have to really keep that in mind as this storm continues to move northeastward. I've had several people asking about the Maypearl area. This will be a storm to watch for the Maypearl area. It's moving south of, at least the core of this storm, moving south of Grandview right now. So as that continues to move northeastward, that could be moving towards Maypearl in the next several minutes. So if you are in the Maypearl area, that will be a storm to watch. It is not severe warned at this time. The only severe storm in North Texas right now is from Plano to McKinney over in Collin County, headed up towards the Leonard area. So that is the only severe storm, or at least the only severe warned storm at this time. But as I mentioned, you can kind of see this broken line here. This is where the cold front is starting to catch up to it, and eventually we will see that making its way eastward here across our area. Now let's take a look again at velocity, and I'm still not seeing anything too terribly concerning in this area here near Maypearl, between Maypearl and Grandview. We could be watching there, as there is this kind of notch starting to build here. I'll be watching that over the next several minutes to see if that does anything here, but I'm not seeing any kind of concerning activity there right at this moment, but we'll continue to watch that as the front moves eastward. Again, like I said, that's moving into untapped, unstable air. So that could be a concern from near Whitney on down to Clifton. Here's kind of another cell. All of this activity behind this, there is cooler air that's moving in, more stable air for sure. And so I don't expect any severe weather behind this line here, kind of this broken line. If you're behind that, your severe weather threat is probably over at this point. Getting a report of rain starting in the Midlothian area, so this storm will move into that direction. I will be watching this storm here, kind of that curvature, so we'll be paying attention to that. Isaac asking, what time will it hit I-45 in Palmer? Not sure yet. We have to wait and see when this storm starts to move eastward before you really have an idea of what to expect in the Palmer area. For now, I'm not really seeing anything that has me convinced either way that we have too much to be concerned with there. So we are kind of waiting to see when we'll get a more solid line that moves due east before we can really worry about anything along I-45 or really east of I-35. Alicia asking about Waxahachie, not too sure yet. Kind of, again, waiting to see when this is all going to start to move towards I-35E. For now, looks like this storm will probably miss Waxahachie to the west, and we'll see what that does. Caitlin, is frost in the clear for today for severe weather? Doesn't look like it. It's still waiting to see when all of this activity will move eastward. That will tell us, if you're anywhere east of this line right now, that will tell us when to expect any kind of changes here. And Kim, the same for Corsicana. Let me kind of make a blanket statement here, because there's a lot of questions about everything, Penelope, everything east of there. So here's our cold front, and this is where the line is starting to get organized. Everything east of us is not going to move west, so you don't have to worry about this activity. But here's our cold front. It's all this activity, when we kind of put this in motion here, still moving northward. Once this activity starts to move eastward, once this cold front takes charge and starts pushing this stuff more of an easterly direction, you can kind of see the cold front a little bit here. Okay, here's a severe thunderstorm warning, so we'll get to that in a moment. But as this activity starts to move eastward, that's when we can have a more detailed conversation about anywhere east of that line. For now, though, we have a severe thunderstorm warning. Now, this is kind of interesting here, so let's talk about this a moment. Here's the severe thunderstorm warning. This does go through Waxahachie. You notice here, the storm is moving northeast, but we're starting to see, you see how this slants? That's a little more of an easterly slant than the track of the storm shows. But again, National Weather Service is expecting these storms to start moving from a little bit more easterly. Julie, we've had a lot of conversation about the funnel cloud in Covington. We'll kind of debrief on that on the page later this evening, I think. For now, no confirmed tornado in Covington, possibly a funnel cloud there, but that's kind of another conversation. So we're looking at this severe thunderstorm warning, and that's until 4 o'clock. So it's 3:20 now, so about another 40 minutes from now. I have to say thank you to Mark for the donation on Cash App. Greatly appreciated there. So this severe thunderstorm warning, you notice the track here, these storms have been moving fairly almost due north at this point, but you notice there's a little bit more of kind of an easterly push here in terms of kind of an easterly slant in terms of this polygon. So they could be expecting this one to start kind of moving a little bit more easterly. That is the cold front. That's what we've been talking about. So this warning here, and that's probably going to be, let's see, yeah, that's going to be for inch in diameter hail, 60 mile per hour winds. So again, kind of a baseline warning here. So this cell going to continue to move on to the northeast, but could be a little bit more eastern than the storms have been up to this point. Excuse me. So this cell is what we're watching. That's going to continue to move on to the northeast. We will take a look at a couple of things here. Let's see. All right. So this is the storm that we're watching here, and I'm not seeing any major winds at this moment. You know what? Let me take a look at this. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything that has me terribly concerned at this very moment. So, but we will continue to monitor this. A little bit of noise there in Maypearl. We'll kind of watch that. I'm not seeing anything that really has me immediately concerned. The storm is back near Grandview, between Grandview and Itasca. So let's take a look at the hail threat there. Yeah, so there's that hail core right near Grandview. That's going to be moving towards Maypearl here in the next several minutes, possibly towards Waxahachie as well. And we are getting closer to school release time here in Waxahachie. So what I will tell you is that as this storm moves northeastward, we will have to pay attention to the fact that kids will be getting into that dismissal period where the schools will have to make a decision. They've already said today that they will consider holding those kids in the school if there's severe weather in the area at that point. Respect that decision. Trust me, they're safer in a school building than on the road in your car, certainly walking or riding a bus. So just kind of keep in mind that we're looking at kind of a decision time here probably in the next several minutes. People continue to ask about the I-45 corridor here from Ennis to Palmer. All of this line is going to continue to get organized and eventually will move eastward. It hasn't started doing that yet, so we really don't know at this point what that's going to do. The only severe warning we have in our area right now is this is moving northeast. So from Grandview towards Maypearl, this is the severe storm. Decent hail core there, inch in diameter or so possible there with the hail sizes. Thank you, Scott, for the Cash App donation. Greatly appreciated there. Okay, so I'm hearing that Maypearl is holding bus riders, Maypearl ISD. So it sounds like they're adjusting their dismissal procedures there to keep those kids safe. So just make sure you're listening for those updates. Richard, are you expecting it to hit the studio? You're in the North Grove area as well, in Waxahachie. It very well could. We got to kind of wait and see. This is, again, a kind of a situation where it's hard to tell because, again, the front is going to start pushing this, so it's hard to tell exactly when we're going to see more easterly motion than northeasterly motion. So we will continue to monitor that. But Waxahachie is under a severe thunderstorm warning at this point for this storm because you could very easily see that move towards Waxahachie in the next several minutes. Now, I haven't heard anything from Midlothian ISD. I will tell you, my kids are not in Midlothian ISD, so I'm not going to be the first to hear it. If you have kids there, odds are you're going to hear the report from them directly before I do. Now, I do know some folks that have kids in Midlothian, so I imagine I'll hear from them if there are any updates there, but nothing about Midlothian. Now, I'm seeing somebody say Midlothian's released already, so I'm not sure what the situation is there, but I will say that in Waxahachie, we will be looking at probably a decision here in the next several minutes, depending on when this storm, if and when this storm approaches Waxahachie in the next several minutes here. And we will have to wait and see. It's about 3:25 here. Schools in Waxahachie, it's kind of a staggered release. And so I know my son will be getting out of school around 3:45 or so. another 20 minutes, that could be in that area. So nothing from Waxahachie quite yet, no updates from there, but I will get those. I'm a Waxahachie ISD parent, and so I will be hearing from them, I'm sure, in the next several minutes. Okay, let's see. Okay. All right, just checking some updates there. Nothing really new. So again, these a lot of confusion. Okay, a lot of confusion about Midlothian, whether they've released or not. Can we get some confirmation from the district there, maybe, and not just back and forth? Now I'm hearing that Grandview is holding on to release kids. That would make sense because the storm is in that vicinity. So if they do release, it will be soon. But the storm moving into the Maypearl area, hearing that they are holding kids, Waxahachie probably going to be the next area to get that storm. They will probably be making a decision here fairly soon because it's getting close to when they need to release those kids. In fact, with that in mind, I do need to see what we're going to do with my son. Need to see what's going to happen with my kiddo there. Okay, so we'll see what Waxahachie does. I know that that's going to be probably the largest district affected by this storm if it continues to move northeast here. I imagine Waxahachie and Midlothian both may have to make a decision with this storm. Let's take a quick look here. And still seeing a hail core west of Maypearl here. That's going to be the most intense part of this storm, but it's about 10 minutes old here. The velocity, or excuse me, the vertically integrated liquid here, the VIL, tends to be a little bit behind. So that hail core is going to be closer to the Maypearl area now rather than closer to Grandview. So that's just kind of an effect of the product here. But that's your hail core right there. So west of Maypearl, that's going to be the heaviest of this. Right now, nothing going on in Italy to answer that question. Yeah, so hearing that Midlothian is running regular release, pretty heavy storm there right now in Midlothian, but not seeing anything too terribly intense. The strongest storm, the severe storm at this point, is west of Maypearl. It looks, if anything, like that may, and here's the update here, looks like that may go between Midlothian and Waxahachie here. So we'll see what that does. That could miss Waxahachie here, at least part of it, over the next several minutes. So if you'll give me a moment here, I'm going to reach off camera. And, okay, so let's see. Okay. Okay, so yeah, so near Maypearl, this is where this severe storm is. This is severe warned, and I don't see anything for the winds at this point. Not seeing any kind of damaging winds or anything with this storm right now. Nothing too intense. The hail threat is probably going to be the most intense, I think, threat here for this storm. And let's take another look at that. If we can get back to the VIL here, it looks like that warning's been trimmed back a little bit. So here's that hail core. So just outside of Maypearl, it's looking to me like that may slide right between Midlothian and Waxahachie here. So closer to kind of the Sardis area, maybe Midway Airport there. So that's what I'm thinking. And then eventually probably towards the Red Oak, Oakleaf, Ovilla area too. So that's kind of the track that I'm expecting with this storm as we go forward. Let me get this back to where we had it. And then, so Midlothian ISD, sounds like Midlothian is pursuing, normal release schedule here. Let me see here. Okay. All right, so let's back in the chat here, trying to kind of catch up on messages here. So nickel-sized hail, estimated nickel-sized hail in Grandview. So that was the storm that just went through. So at least, pocket change-sized hail with that storm. Not hearing anything too catastrophic there or anything, but it is a decent enough hail threat to where they do have that severe thunderstorm warning. It does look like most of that storm will probably miss Waxahachie. You're kind of on the edge of that warning there, but you are included. Now, Barbara is asking about the tornado threat. No imminent tornado threat at this time. Not seeing any kind of really organized tornado threat at this moment. Nothing, no kind of intense rotation that has me immediately worried here. But I will say that there is a decent hail threat with this storm. Now, more questions about the I-45 corridor here. So let me kind of go over this again. We are seeing this broken line of storms. And so as this thing lines up and continues to start moving more easterly as opposed to northeast, that's when we'll see a higher threat for the I-45 corridor. That hasn't started to happen yet, so we will have to wait and see when that happens. But once it does, that's when the eastern part of our area will have a better chance of severe weather. But we're not to that point quite yet at this moment. Now, I'm hearing someone report rotation, definite rotation in Maypearl near downtown. But I'm not seeing that here. I'm not seeing confirmation of rotation at this point, so not entirely sure what that's referring to. But looking at Maypearl right now, I'm just not seeing that at this time. Kim asking, is this the last round, or will more pop up after this? So my expectation is that we are going to see this line become more organized over the next hour or so. That will start to push eastward. Again, I can't give you a timeline on that yet. We're still waiting for that to establish itself. And then as that moves on eastward, behind it, you can see Cleburne is behind the front right now. So you're still seeing some shower and thunderstorm activity out there. So you're not necessarily done, but the severe weather threat should be more... so that's going to be... where we'll see a more likely, okay, a lot of kind of crosstalk in the chat there, but we won't really see a severe weather threat behind the front. It's going to be along and ahead of it that we are still seeing that possibility. That's why we still, again, have Ellis County under a tornado watch, included in that tornado watch, until 6 p.m. Tyler saying you're at the Timco on top floor and you're no expert, but you see the rotation. So I guess we need to get some kind of view in Maypearl there of whatever rotation is being seen. I guess if you can give us a direction on that, a little more detail so that we can kind of try to see what you're looking at here. Okay, so there are a couple of people saying that they see rotation from downtown Maypearl. I don't know what direction you're looking. Need a little more information so that we can kind of investigate that. And a couple of questions about Red Oak. Nothing headed to Red Oak imminently at this moment. Well, I'll say that, let's get back to the reflectivity here for a moment. So this particular storm probably moving towards the Red Oak area. So you are included in that severe thunderstorm warning. And we'll continue to see that move northeasterly here. So the Red Oak area, you could get some gusty winds, heavy rain, frequent lightning, thunder, and maybe some small hail out of this storm. Tyler, you said you're not making an actual tornado, but the clouds are spinning in a circle form. So, I mean, it's still kind of vague there, but, I mean, that would normally indicate a wall cloud, which is still worth mentioning. But again, until I see it, if you can take a picture of it, send in a video, something like that, that will greatly help us to visualize what you're seeing, because without seeing it, it's hard for me to know. So Tyler or someone else in downtown Maypearl, if you're seeing that rotation, if you can grab a picture of that safely, of course, if you can grab an image, then that would help. Let's see here, not seeing that at this moment. Okay, so we're trying to get a little more information on that. Matt, I don't imagine you're hearing anything from the, let's see. Okay, Michelle, you're saying can't see it now. Too much rain clouds are rotating right over downtown. Again, just some hard to understand really what's going on there. So we'll see what comes in from the Maypearl area. And if you do send in a video of what the weather's doing, please include a location. If I don't know a location, I can't make sense of what you're sending me. So definitely send us an image of what you're seeing there. Keep in mind too that if you're seeing motion in the clouds, not all motion is rotation, so that can make a difference. But at the moment here, I'm not seeing any kind of rotation, anything that really catches my eye here in terms of that circulation that's been reported there. But I mean, we talked about in the Covington storm, the very small, brief storm that it was. Apparently there was a funnel cloud there, so we'll have to watch and see what's going on. We'll see what reports we get from that area. Now I'm getting trying to get pictures here. The Facebook website is just awful. It's just awful today. Not showing pictures well at all. In fact, the way it's pulling up the pictures, it's showing the messages behind it, so I can't hardly tell. Okay, I've got one picture from Maypearl here. I'm not seeing anything that would resemble a wall cloud or any kind of rotation here, so we'll have to watch and see what we find. Yeah, I'm getting a few pictures and images here, but I'm not seeing anything that looks like rotation in that area. And again, let me remind you too that when you have clouds on the front end of a storm, you can have rotation there, but a lot of the time you're going to see a gust front or a shelf cloud, something like that. There's going to be a lot of motion because there's a lot of wind, but not always rotation. So that's something to keep in mind there. Getting a report of hail in the Mount Peak area. Lots of wind in Maypearl, and that could be the situation where it could just be strong winds that are moving those clouds around and not necessarily causing rotation here. So that is an open question. But until we see confirmation, it's going to be hard to know really what Maypearl is looking at. So we'll continue to kind of investigate that, and Matt, if you'll monitor any messages that come in. Hearing a lot of people say the video's not working, so we can't really extrapolate anything out of that. So here's the storm that we're watching. This is the severe thunderstorm that we've been keeping an eye on, and looks like that will spread west of Waxahachie, east of Cleburne here, of course, right on the county line. So as that continues on, looks like that may move more towards Midlothian at this point. Behind all of that, you see more sporadic activity, and this is behind the front. Now, this storm near Whitney is along the front there too, so that could possibly be a matter of concern. Now, near Maypearl, we have this little tail on the bottom of this. Now, I will say, the little tails like that, that's usually what we have to watch. But I'm still not seeing anything that has me too terribly concerned. But this storm, the reason we have to keep an eye on this is that it's kind of out there by itself. Anytime you have those storms that kind of go rogue and they're just by themselves out there, that opens them up to more rotation, more possibilities there, more potential for that. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll be watching that. Of course, we've had on and off reports of rotation in Maypearl, but haven't really seen anything yet to substantiate that. Seeing video looking at Maypearl, but I'm not seeing anything that looks suspect. So I guess we'll just kind of wait and see what happens there. So the hail in this storm near Maypearl and north towards Midlothian. This storm looks like that's weakening here. It looks like we're losing some intensity. We had pocket change hail, so I think we had one report of nickel-sized hail. That was really the only thing that we saw in terms of specifics from this storm. I wouldn't be surprised if hail was getting close to an inch in diameter, briefly at least, but that storm does look like it's losing some of that intensity. We'll take a look at the vertically integrated liquid. Yeah, that storm is losing some intensity here, so starting to weaken. Looks like it could have cycled up. Looks like it's weakening now, but as that moves into Dallas County, just like the last storm that did so, I could cycle up again. So the severe thunderstorm warning continues for what? Another 20 minutes here? Yeah, another 20 minutes for that warning, but really not much to speak of with that storm at this moment. And really, let's see. Yeah, we're getting some people asking about, Karen, you're saying wicked clouds looking west from Wedgeworth. So you're looking at that storm. I have no doubt that it probably looks pretty intimidating, but that's because the storm, so we, answering some questions there. So yeah, storm moving towards Waxahachie right now. I mean, you're going to hear it, but it does look like most of Waxahachie will kind of just be grazed by this. A lot of lightning there on 287 between Waxahachie and Midlothian. So let's see. Looking towards Karen's direction from Wildman. I'm not sure what that means. If you're talking about somebody named Karen, I don't know what direction that is, but it looks like it's building upward. So that would be scud cloud. So that's just talking about the updraft. That's just where the storm is breathing in that Gulf moisture that's plentiful in this area. So that will continue to feed that storm. And let's see. And okay, a lot of discussion. Let's see. New mesoscale discussion has the cold front where the line is, so it's linear cold front lines. Yeah. So northeast weather. That's what we've been talking about. Chris, I know. Well, Currens is a town, but I mean, if you're what I'm confused about is if you're talking about Wildman looking from Currens. Are you talking about Wildman Elementary and Waxahachie? Because that's quite a spread to be talking about. That's why I was a little confused. You will have cooler air. You will have cooler air behind it because the cold front is right behind these storms. So, and that's what we were talking about earlier. I think it was northeast weather or something rather that talked about that. So, yeah, that's what we're talking about in terms of the cold front has caught up to this now, and that's why we are talking about all of this moving eastward. So eventually we'll see more easterly motion here. Here's a flash flood warning up in Dallas County. So that's kind of what we're talking about in terms of that flood risk there. But all of this activity from down in Whitney on through Ellis County up into Dallas County, this is along the front, and eventually we'll start to see this move more due east as the front moves on. And Chelsea, do you think it'll be out of Red Oak by 6? So the cold front will probably be through Red Oak by 6, but the trick is, the other side of that is that we will possibly see more rain behind it. And so the question is whether we'll see rain at 6 o'clock, hard to say, because we could see more rain behind this line once it all moves through. But we're still kind of waiting for, and the models predicted this, that we would kind of get in a situation where this would all just kind of stall and all move northeasterly for a while and all kind of train over the same areas. That's the flood threat I was talking about in that video earlier. And eventually, though, we'll see it get more organized and move through. But all these places where you're getting these cooler temperatures, that's where the cold front's moving in. I've got 81 degrees here at the studio. That was the forecasted high today. Nailed it. But pretty soon, we will see the cooler air making its way in, and it will be cooler. Now, the fact that the front is moving through, what I'm thinking right now is, do I need to adjust overnight lows a little bit cooler here? I might have to. We're talking mid-50s, could be a little bit lower. Hearing Ferris might sound the sirens due to wind. So Ferris, I mean, this is a pretty early point to be talking about the sirens and Ferris, but you know, that's their decision, and the front's not quite there. Now let's take a look at this storm, see what maybe they're looking at there. So they're probably looking at this part of the storm here, and we could have some increasing winds heading towards the Ferris area. I don't see anything too terribly intense there at the moment, but I do know that you know, some of these communities, they have different criteria for those sirens. So that's why it's important to plug into your city and figure out what their criteria are for those sirens. So let's see, lots of conversation here. Pea-sized hail near Walnut Grove Middle School in Midlothian. So yeah, the storm continues to move through there. And that storm does appear to be weakening, but could still have some hail going on there. Could still have some small hail in this storm. Looks like a decent wing of this storm headed towards the Red Oak area, eventually possibly towards Ferris. Hard to say exactly what that's going to do. And let's see here. Looks like it's coming back to Alvarado. So Alvarado, you're behind the front at this point. It's going to be cooling down. You won't have severe weather there, but you could still have some shower and thunderstorm activity there in that particular area. So here's kind of a broad look area-wide. Let's kind of talk about the big picture of what we're dealing with here. So here's our entire kind of 4-county area, north central Texas here. And this is the line. So this is kind of our broken line of storms right along the front. The models called this pretty closely. The timing may be a little bit off, but they called it pretty closely. We had a development of isolated storms ahead of the front. The front is now catching up to all of this, and it's kind of stalled here for a while. And then eventually, if the models hold true, which so far they have, we will see this all come together and move eastward as a new line. So that's where we can talk about what's coming. And Rigo, I see your messages here. You don't have to keep asking. I see that's where we will start to talk about Ennis and Ferris and Corsicana and Hubbard and all these places farther east that haven't gotten anything yet. Odds are once the front gets moving again and pushes all of this east, that is when you will start to notice this. Now, temperature right now, I told you a minute ago, it was 81. Temperature is now 78 in Waxahachie, getting some of that rain-cooled air out of this. And so, Janice, you're saying swirling winds. I don't think there's any rotation in Waxahachie, so let's be careful with the terminology there. But definitely the winds will be picking up in Waxahachie. Take a look outside of the studio here. Fairly dark clouds moving into Waxahachie. So I wonder. Let's take a quick look here at the velocity. Yeah, we've got some winds coming out of that storm here, and you can see that line. So hard to say if this is definitively the cold front and if that's overrun these storms at this point. I won't be surprised if, let's see, let's put this back on the reflectivity here. So the front may have overrun this storm, or more accurately gone below it, because these fronts move on the surface. Still quite a bit of lightning and thunder going on between Oakleaf and Midlothian. Emerald, you're saying can literally see rotation on Butcher Road. Send us an image of that, or preferably a video of that. I can't tell in an image, but if you see rotation and can safely do so, get video of that so that we can actually see that and try to get information. I'm fairly close to Butcher Road, and I can see a lot of movement in the clouds. I'm not seeing rotation here. There is some scud there. There is, with this part of the cloud, this part of the storm here, there's going to be a lot of motion because of, and I'm just looking out the window here, there's going to be a lot of motion because there's a lot of wind, but that doesn't exclusively always mean rotation. If you see low hanging clouds, that doesn't always mean, yeah, I'm seeing some scud clouds here. So those can be lower clouds. I'm just looking out the window here. I can see some scud clouds. But that doesn't always mean that it's tornadoes. So there's a lot of what we call SLCs out there, scary looking clouds, right? That's kind of a situation that we can see. And it looks like outflow. Matt, are you seeing this? Where we're seeing new development over Waxahachie right now. Let's cut the frames in half just to see this last few moments. So that's what I'm seeing. So I am right over here, and we're seeing kind of this starting to push out. So this is probably new development here. So a lot of we're getting more and more reports of rotation here. Please, if you can, get us video of that, and so that we can see that and kind of get a better idea of what you're looking at here. Clouds look rotating to me too, definitely moving in different directions on Butcher currently. Like I said, you can have a lot of motion in clouds, especially with the winds as they are. That doesn't necessarily mean rotation. So it looks like the front has, I mean, it's cleared Midlothian. Temperatures continue, wow, 75 degrees here at the studio now. So just a moment ago it was 81 degrees, so the cool air is here. And with all of that going on, I'm not surprised that we're seeing a lot of motion in the clouds here. And I'm in the North Grove area, and I'm definitely seeing motion in the clouds because you're definitely seeing this gust front move through, and you're going to see a lot of motion going on, but that's a lot of chaos. It's not organized rotation. That can be a big difference here. And I'm not seeing kind of videos here, but live action Mustache Man on YouTube, you have video. If you want to send that to Kevin at southmetroweather.com, send that email. We will definitely get that and take a look. But 75 degrees here. 75 degrees right now here at the studio. We were 81 just a few minutes ago. So the front is definitely coming through. The cooler air is coming through, and as the front passes, that will stabilize the air and greatly reduce the probability of severe weather there. So you can definitely see winds that are increasing here. This is going to be cooler air, and I would dare say that looks like the front there from moving through Pecan Hill over towards Rocket, just moved through Waxahachie. I'm right around here, so it's moving through my area right now, and that accounts for the temperatures continuing to drop. So that's what we're looking at. Loud thunder reported in Red Oak, so that storm, yes, is there. Yeah, so temperatures will continue to drop here as the front moves ahead, and that is going to reduce the threat of severe weather where that front goes through. So definitely winds picking up at the studio here. I can see that. Like I say, if you have video of that reported rotation, definitely send that to me. But really, I think the biggest difference here is going to be whether that rotation is organized rotation or if it's just the clouds moving a lot because of all the wind that is there. That I have definitely seen. I've definitely seen the clouds churning and moving a lot, but no organized rotation, no organized movement in one way or the other. It's just chaos up there because of how strong these winds are. And north of Waxahachie, you can kind of see this new development here a little bit. As the front moves through, it kind of creates its own lift, but it's stable air. So it's stable air behind it, so it's creating all of these new showers behind the front, but it doesn't have the lift and the instability that it needs to become a severe storm. So that's the question. Temps down about 10 degrees in Venus since the front moved through. I mean, we're down to 73 degrees here. So we're down 8 degrees already just in the last few minutes here at the studio. Definite winds picking up here. And okay, for the severe thunderstorm warning, you probably saw it go off here, but the severe thunderstorm warning was canceled. That's what that was. So it has been canceled already at this point. Okay, trying to monitor the phone here, got family out and that kind of thing, new information. Okay. You can see people coming and going from school and work and that kind of thing. But yeah, we're getting rain here at the studio. That's going to be this part of the storm right here. I will say at this point, we're seeing this storm weaken quickly, fairly quickly. And so I think the front has overrun that storm. Now it's going to start to stabilize and kind of cut that down. And if that's the case, then the severe weather threat is dropping here for Ellis County. I will say this storm here in Hillsborough, I think is behind or is ahead of the front. So that's still a strong storm. That's west of Hillsborough, near Whitney there. So that could be kind of our last severe storm, or well, it's not severe warned at this point, our last strong storm. But man, 72 degrees. So we're down 9 degrees here at the studio just in the last few minutes. Live action, if you want to upload that, you're on YouTube there. If you want to upload that on YouTube, make it unlisted and send me the link, that'll work too. I understand it may be too large to send by email. But this storm is starting to get cut down here as the front has passed through it. And, you know, we'll have to watch this particular storm too to see what that does and see if that weakens very quickly too. We could look at the trend here in the last few frames and holding intensity there, and still a lot of lightning, with this storm really starting to fall apart, and that is evidence that the front may have pushed through there. So we'll see what happens here in terms of what's headed towards, I will say towards Ferris here. That looks like that could be the front. So gusty winds headed towards Ferris here, headed towards Palmer, and on east from there. So it's right along 35 east from what I can tell. And so this storm will probably start to weaken fairly soon if it is behind that front there. Okay, well here, as I say that, we have a severe thunderstorm warning issued for parts of Hill, Johnson, and Ellis counties here for this particular storm. So I'm curious to see if maybe this is getting enough interaction with the front to cycle up, and then before it weakens. So decent winds here between really west of Hillsborough here, north of Whitney, and then I assume we're going to see a little bit of a hail core here too. Yeah, north of Whitney, definitely a hail core there. Not a big one there, but there is a hail core. I imagine we'll see that storm weakening here fairly soon, but it has intensified here. The front has probably added some lift to this, but what will probably happen here is the front will pass through it, that will start to weaken and lose its intensity, and then we kind of go on with our lives after that. This warning until 4:45, so really another 45 minutes or so, about another 50 minutes. So that is what we're looking at with this storm. So, I mean, it's got a while to it. We'll see what this does. This is our next severe thunderstorm warning so a pretty standard warning there. 1-inch hail, 60-mile-per-hour winds. Again, that's pretty much baseline at this point. And some people asking, what will Waxahachie get later? Now that that storm has weakened and moved out, at this point, we're going to be watching really behind it. Any rain we have behind it will be sub-severe, below severe limits, and will be less intense from there. So a pretty decent situation. Yeah, had to get your light jacket on. So it will be a cool evening behind the front here. All right, so let's take a look. 70 degrees here, so down 11 degrees. Down 11 degrees here in the last few minutes. I haven't timed it, but definitely a much cooler situation. The winds have died down here at the studio, so the clouds are not churning as much. Again, when you have those crazy winds, the clouds are going to be doing a lot of things. That can rotate here and there just a little bit, but it's organized rotation that you want to look for in these storms. That's really going to make the difference. I'm curious to see which direction this storm goes here. The severe thunderstorm warning doesn't quite reach Italy here. I've got a question about that. So unsure if this storm will continue more northeasterly or if that storm will try to move more of a due east direction. So we'll see what that does here over the next several minutes as we go forward here. But let's kind of look at the big picture. And this storm here, this is the one that brought the cooler temperatures and the wind and, frankly, the front to Waxahachie. And then here's that next storm, and really the rest of the activity behind it doesn't look as intense. So this could be our last severe storm that we have. A little unsure what direction this storm is going to go. For the moment, going northeast. So as this one moves, could be headed towards Forreston here eventually, and then towards Waxahachie. That is, if that storm keeps its current track. We'll keep an eye on that. We'll look at the velocity again, and nothing too terribly concerning here. Looks like wind speeds might be coming down in that storm. Could have been just a brief kind of swell of intensity, but that's what we see here. Some gusty winds, plenty of lightning in that storm. And then we were talking about that hail threat, and that is starting to diminish as well. So north of Whitney, northwest of Hillsborough, that hail threat starting to diminish. That storm looks like that could very well, my hypothesis on that may be right on the money, that as the front was passing that storm, it gave it a quick burst of lift, and then kind of maybe a reactionary severe thunderstorm warning now. Now that that's been there, we could be seeing that beginning to weaken here now, and that's kind of been the situation here. That's been the situation with a few of these storms. As the front passes by it, it kind of gets a big burst of lift and then starts to weaken again. So may not be much going on with that storm here in this area. So we'll continue to monitor that one, But I can tell you, that we have, so Lynn's saying overcast in Palmer. I think the whole area is pretty well overcast at this point. But behind this activity, we could very well see more rain. You can see there's more showers behind the front here, but nothing severe. The only severe storm we have is near Hillsborough. A strong storm west of Ferris could move through the Ferris area, but that's not severe at this point. Probably on a weakening trend at this point, I would think, and cooler air along with that too. So you look area wide, and we still kind of have, I'm still curious to see what's going to happen here in the next couple of hours, because we have this line, but parts of this line keep getting undercut by this front. But the models have kind of guessed that we'd see a new line develop and move eastward. So time will tell with that. Now, getting towards parts of Navarro County, I do want to kind of look at the eastern part of our area here. So here's Kearns. You can see Richland Chambers Lake here. So we do have some storms from the Fairfield area moving northward. This is ahead of the front. This happens when you have a front approaching. It'll start to kind of lift some of that moisture in advance of the front. And so if you're in eastern portions of Navarro County, you may see this storm fairly soon. These are non-severe storms at this point, bringing some noise, heavy rain, lightning, thunder, but not severe at this time. What we'll have to wait and watch for is the front as it continues to move eastward to see if that will create a new line of strong to severe thunderstorms. At this point, it has not. We're kind of in that waiting period of kind of watching this thing evolve to see how this will work over the next several minutes. But the front came right through here in Waxahachie and kind of undercut the storm that was there. They canceled that warning, and so we will see what happens over the next several minutes with this storm in Hill County. So we'll stop the motion there for just a moment. This is the last severe storm we have here. Just for the record here, the tornado watch, Ellis County is still included in that tornado watch until 6 p.m. So not technically out of the woods yet, but if the front has moved through, if you've gotten that very sudden rush of cool air, the front's moved through and you're kind of out of the woods for that severe weather threat. Still a strong storm here, but I do continue to see signs of that storm probably weakening here. Let's see if we can get an update on the velocity view here. Again, I'm not seeing a lot of intense wind here that we were seeing in the frame before. We'll see what this update does here in the next few seconds or few minutes or so once that updates, because I don't think that we're really seeing a whole heck of a lot. Now, I will mention to you, we could see more rain overnight into tomorrow morning. That will be showers, maybe a clap of thunder or two, really not much, not severe overnight. We dry out in the latter half of the day tomorrow. Wednesday, we start dry. Wednesday night, we could see more rain. Showers and thunderstorms Thursday, more rain, I think, than storms. Friday could be some more strong storms. We'll have to keep an eye on that. And then looks decent going into the weekend. But this week, we don't get out of the 70s. So it doesn't look like we have any 80s in the forecast here. So not bad news for that. So we're waiting to see the update we're going to get on the velocity view here to see if we have any more of these intense winds. My guess is we're probably going to continue to see that weakening trend as the storm gets closer to the Hillsborough area, probably between Itasca and Hillsborough, approaching I-35. I want to see what that does. So if we can get that, hopefully we can get that update here. It's overdue. Sometimes the velocity takes a little longer. I think usually we'll see the reflectivity update, and then the rest of the products generally update after that, probably disseminating what that first scan brought. So we'll see what the velocity does, and that will kind of confirm for us whether we're seeing that weakening trend or what the case is. And while we're waiting for that, here's that update. And yeah, so I think we're seeing this get less organized. So I think the front may have undercut this storm and is probably leading to a weakening trend, less lightning with that too. Here's the 352 update on the vertically integrated liquid. Now this is a very old image, but very much a weaker situation there with that. So hopefully we can get an update here shortly. But I think we're going to, again, see continued signs of that weakening trend. So I imagine this severe thunderstorm warning is probably going to be weakened here fairly quickly. And nothing really new for our area from the National Weather Service. And I'm waiting for the vertically integrated liquid to update here. That's kind of the slowest product on here. So, we'll see what that does. Maybe we can drop that. No, that didn't work. It takes a while. It's been about 12 minutes here, so 13 minutes actually, since we had an update there. So hopefully we'll get an update soon out of that, and that'll tell us a little more about what to expect from this storm. But plenty of heavy rain that we are seeing, and north of Hillsborough, moving towards Itasca, possibly towards Carl's Corner. I'm not sure, Haley, to answer that question, I'm not sure if this is going to make it to the Italy area. This could move more kind of west of Italy as it continues on. Hard to tell, though. Looks like that storm is soon going to be under the influence, or is now, of the cold front, so that could kind of adjust the direction. Yeah, this storm, it could be some small hail still with that storm as it approaches Itasca, but that looks fairly low intensity right now, especially compared to where it was. So that storm looks like the front has passed through that storm. That is causing it to weaken here. So I think that's where we are going to see things ramp down as far as what storms we have in our area. This storm in Dallas County still looks fairly intense as it moves towards the Mesquite area, towards the parts of southeast Dallas County. But this storm here going to continue towards parts of Ellis and Johnson counties, but that one looks to be losing intensity. So I think that we will see. I think that we will see this this particular storm continue to weaken as it moves into Ellis County. I can't tell. I can't really tell exactly how much longer they're going to have that severe thunderstorm warning there, but I imagine that will probably be canceled early instead of letting that thing go for the entire period. So we'll continue to watch this. Now, I'm getting a report that Midlothian ISD is delaying release of middle and high school, no time frame given. There's nothing immediately in that area. They may be waiting to see what this storm does to see if that will impact their area. My guess is it probably won't. Yeah, so there's Joshua, you're reporting that too. May have a slightly delayed release for students grades 6 to 12 at our middle and high school campuses. Thank you for your patience. Please be safe. Take your time driving. Looks like now, Laura Joe, so it sounds like there are a few places that are delaying release here, probably waiting to see what this storm does. There's a severe thunderstorm warning. It is a warned storm. So the fact that it's a warned storm at this point, some of these areas, Midlothian, Waxahachie, they're going to wait and see what that does before they start releasing kids again and proceed normally with the dismissal plans. But the good news is that I do see this storm likely in a weakening trend here. I do expect to see that severe thunderstorm warning dropped fairly soon. They may wait and see if that trend continues, but it does look like the front has kind of undercut that storm and has initiated a weakening trend with the storm here. And we should get an update here in the next few minutes. But it does look to me like we're going to be seeing a weakening trend continue with that storm. So that is good news here. The severe weather threat quickly deteriorating across north central Texas. We will take that. We started the day with a tornado watch that included Ellis and Johnson counties. That's still technically in place, but I think we will probably see that change up here in the next several minutes. We will probably see Ellis and Johnson counties drop from that as we continue to watch that front proceed and reduce the severe weather threat across our area here. So all in all, we have been, I would say, kind of underwhelmed here, which is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. Northeast weather, probably going to just go just by GR2, which is what some National Weather Service meteorologists use for personal use. Yeah, GR2 is fine. I've looked into that. Didn't necessarily do what I needed for broadcast use, but it is what it is, and I hope it works well for you. So this storm we've been watching here over the last several minutes, and we'll get an update here fairly soon. Okay, so yeah, this clever what they've done here. So they have canceled the Ellis County portion of this warning here. So Ellis County, they have shortened the warning because they're expecting this storm to continue to weaken. So they're still seeing evidence of severe weather, severe conditions here in northern Hill County, possibly parts of southern Johnson County, but they have since canceled Ellis County. They are not expecting this storm to be severe as it moves into Ellis County. Now, I can't rule out lightning, and that may be part of the calculus for these schools that are trying to delay the release of kids here, but at least they are not expecting this storm to be severe as it moves into Ellis County. Now, if you're in Ferris, Palmer, Ennis, you might be starting to get these gusty winds here and the cooler temperatures. We are now at 68 degrees. We are now 13 degrees cooler than we were a handful of moments ago. I'm not sure, but that was what, 15, 20 minutes ago, when all of that wind came through and temperatures quickly dropped. So we are in the 60s here, and it is 4:11. We're still in peak heating time, and we're in the upper 60s across our area with a decent breeze. So that's where things stand right now. And this particular storm here could be moving towards Waxahachie, but I expect this one to start weakening. That's why they canceled the Ellis County portion of this warning and kind of reduced that a little bit. So they cut that back, and that was, so cancels Ellis, continues Hill and Johnson. So yeah, that was several minutes ago, a couple of minutes ago that they made that change. That storm is going to continue to weaken. So they have this severe thunderstorm warning in place, where they expect this storm to continue to be somewhat intense, but it's going to weaken by the time it moves into Ellis County. So that is a sigh of relief for the schools that are trying to make adjustments to their release plans. Definitely makes that a lot easier, I would say. So I need to say thank you to Jennifer. I missed that several minutes ago. Thank you, Jennifer, for your Venmo donation. That is greatly appreciated there. Northeast weather, Radar Omega is really good for weather broadcasts and lives. The only thing I don't like is that you have to pay the Alpha subscription, but still have to pay for the rapid sweep animation. So thing is, Northeast, the rapid sweep, number one, it was buggy. It wasn't working well. And two, it doesn't do anything. There's nothing to it that improves on the base functionality. So I would say you're not missing anything without that. This storm, we're going to continue to see that weaken here. And that storm, we're definitely seeing this losing intensity here. So that storm, this severe thunderstorm warning, can probably be dropped fairly soon as this is going to continue to deteriorate. So a report of nothing in western Navarro County. We can see that on radar here. Really nothing in Navarro County at all. So we'll continue to monitor this. I think there's still a possibility that we could see a new line of storm develop, but it's not, I'm not going to really be too concerned at the moment. We'll continue to monitor that here and kind of keep an eye on that. But for the moment, the severe weather threat is quickly decreasing as the front moves through our area. We'll go to the velocity view, see if we can track that front. So hard to see where the front is at this point. It's gotten kind of beyond where the velocity is going to track it. But, so Sammy, the Weather Channel models predict more severe storms hitting in an hour or so. So here's the thing about the Weather Channel. Their future radar, it has predicted storms that never happened. And I seriously, I get messages. I'll get messages in the middle of the night sometimes saying, "Hey, the radar says this whole storm is gonna happen." And the thing is, it doesn't ever happen, and it just causes a lot of concern. So, there's, it's really hard to, number one, know that we're going what they're going with there, and so I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying it's not often right. So you have to be careful with the Weather Channel app and that whole thing, because it just doesn't seem to adjust well to new information. So And okay, so thank you, Megan, for your donation, and thank you, Melissa, for both of you for your donations to us. So, all right, yeah. So we are watching this storm. This is the last severe thunderstorm in our area here. The Ellis County portion of this warning was canceled, so we're no longer warned in Ellis County. The warning still exists for this storm as it is now, but it is expected to continue to weaken, and so they made it to where there's really no warning past where it is at this point, and I'm sure that will be allowed to expire if it doesn't just, get canceled early. You'll see we have another 30 minutes in that. So it will be canceled early, I think, probably in the next several minutes here. But that storm there, let's see, I'm not seeing anything that really has me too concerned. There's a little noise with the velocity here, but not seeing anything too terribly worrisome with that. And then if we look at the vertically integrated liquid, maybe a small area of some hail, but really not much. So outside of Itasca, not seeing much for that part of the storm. So maybe a little bit of small hail left, maybe some gusty winds, but really not much outside of that. Now let's get over to, for giggles here, let's pull up the high resolution rapid refresh model. Now this is going back to 3 o'clock, so this is going back to an hour ago. Yeah, so the thing is that this is an old model with old data, and this is kind of changing on the fly. So I'm going to show you something. This is a model that by 7 o'clock still shows some pretty intense storms here. And then doesn't actually show the front moving out until 9 o'clock tonight. Now I can't say that's wrong, but it's tough to see where this would, it's tough to see that being accurate because the front is already in our area. So I think the models might be having a hard time predicting what's going to happen next because things are kind of changing on the fly here. Somebody asked, is the tornado threat increasing for Ellis County? No. If anything, the severe weather threat is decreasing for Ellis County. As we've been talking about, that storm, the severe thunderstorm warning, has been reduced, pulled back from Ellis County because this particular storm is weakening. So I don't see an increasing tornado threat for Ellis County at this time. So not sure if you heard that somewhere or if that's just a kind of a general question. But not seeing a increasing tornado threat for Ellis County at this point. And power out in April. So yeah, there's the possibility of some power outages, especially with those stronger winds blowing through. Unfortunately, that can be just kind of a part of that. But the good news is that, like I say, this particular storm does look like it's weakening, and so I don't see that causing any major issues as it begins to very soon move into Ellis County. I think that we'll be in a situation where that will continue its weakening trend, and we should be out of the woods in terms of the threats or issues from that storm. So this one will continue to weaken. It's still heavy rain in Itasca, still going to be some heavy rain as that moves into Ellis County, parts of Ellis County at least. But for the most part, we're kind of out of the woods here, folks, as far as right now. Now, we may still see, as we see this cold front continue on, we may still see, I'll put this into motion again, may still see another line of storms develop as that front moves through. But for the moment, and there's that severe thunderstorm warning has been canceled early, so that was wrapped up, and our immediate severe weather threat is reduced now. We will see over the next several minutes that storm continue to weaken and then continue on. So thank you so much for watching. We're going to go ahead and wrap up this live stream. I'm going to jump over and kind of take a look at models, take a look at trends, see what maybe we have in store for the rest of the evening. But for right now, the severe weather threat across our area continues to deteriorate, and I will continue to bring updates on South Metro weather through our social media platforms over the next few hours in case anything changes, or as we quite possibly see another line develop. I don't want to tell you that the I-45 corridor is done completely for the night. We kind of have to wait and see what happens with that front. But for now, the severe weather threat is diminishing, and I will continue to keep you updated as the evening goes on through South Metro weather. Thank you for watching.